All right, everybody, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Nice to see a packed house in here for a Planning Commission meeting. So this is our public hearing for the draft town plan. Today you're going to hear some remarks from BCRC, a little overview, and really the goal for tonight is to hear and take in the input from all of you. So we're going to be taking everything that we get from all of the sessions that we've had regarding public input, and we're going to be taking that, working that into the next draft of the town plan, which will go to the select board. And so I'll turn it over to Dan for some additional opening remarks.
Sure. So I'll just follow up on Evan's comments. So the Planning Commission hopes to wrap up its work on the town plan draft by the end of September, when we will hopefully, again, this is our schedule, never know if we can meet our deadlines, but we would like to be able to submit the draft to the select board by the end of September. Then the select board will hold at least 2 public hearings before they make a decision regarding adoption of the town plan. So this will likely conclude the public hearings for the Planning Commission, but there will be at least 2 more, probably more, informal meetings in addition to the formal public hearings in front of the select board before the select board makes their decision on whether or not to adopt it. The Planning Commission simply recommends, the select board is the body that will ultimately decide on whether or not to adopt the town plan, and they also obviously are empowered to make changes before they adopt it. So I guess I'll leave it at that. We'll have questions, if you have questions after the presentation from the Bennington County Regional Commission about the process, about the town plan, about anything regarding the town plan substance and the process, please feel free to ask. But we're going to open it up to Callie, you're going to do the presentation. Callie Fishburne from BCRC is going to do a brief presentation, and then we'll open it up to the public for comments. So thanks everybody for being here tonight.
With support.
Hi everyone. Can everybody hear me all right? Great. My name is Callie Fishburne. I work for the Bennington County Regional Commission, and BCRC was hired by the town of Bennington to develop a new town plan based on community input and values. We did this work in 2 phases, starting in 2023 with a very extensive community engagement phase, and then we had a second phase where we took all of that information during our community engagement and turned it into a town plan. So if you were at the August 13th meeting, this presentation will look fairly similar to that. Also, we gave a fairly in-depth recap of our community engagement efforts at a May 2024 meeting of the Planning Commission. So that has a lot more detail. So I'll just be going over this information fairly quickly so that there's plenty of time for people's comments and questions. So again, as I said, I won't go into a lot of detail, but here are just some of the numbers at a glance for our community engagement. We also outlined this information briefly in the town plan in the introduction and in the appendix, one of the appendices of the town plan. So we had 5 main engagement methods that we did during phase 1. We had a student postcard activity, we had a survey, we did community roundtables, we did focus groups with partner organizations, and we did tabling at public events. These are just some fun photos of those events, including some of the postcards that we got. So our postcarding activity was really exciting. We worked with the public schools in Bennington and got over 900 postcards from elementary, middle, and high school students. We had 2 different versions, one for the older kids, one for the younger kids. And they really came up with some amazing artwork and some amazing visions for Bennington. So this is just a summary of some of the vision statements that were reflected in their postcards. And again, there's a lot more information about this in the town plan, as well as some of the lovely artwork from the kids sprinkled throughout the town plan, so that's a really nice element there. We also had a survey, so there's just a sample of some of the survey results here. I won't talk really too much in depth about this. This is just, again, to remind everybody of all the input that we did have in the development of the plan. So again, another sample question that was asked on the survey. And then we had this series of community roundtable meetings where we asked folks different questions within these 6 general topic areas here. People were at tables and having group conversations, and then they rotated, and so everybody got to talk through the different topics, different table topics. And then out of all of our public engagement that we did, again, the postcards, the survey, the roundtables, the focus groups, the tabling events that we did, we came up with these themes that we are calling visions for Bennington. So this is a vision, these are visions of what Bennington will be in the future, and this is derived from all of the public engagement efforts. And these themes are reflected throughout the town plan. And then again, also out of all of the public engagement that we did during that phase, we came up with these values, which were reflected in a variety of the different input that we received from community members. And so these values are the motivation and the principles for how Bennington will go about its planning processes. And that is also reflected throughout the plan. So we did all of that public engagement, we collated, organized all of it, and presented it to the Planning Commission at that May 2024 meeting that I mentioned. And then in addition to that summary recap that we presented to the Planning Commission, we also presented 3 different options for a town plan structure with some additional information and examples of each, what that might look like, some examples of other municipal plans from other jurisdictions that might have used these different structures. And then after some discussion, the Planning Commission ultimately chose to go with the hybrid town plan, which I will demonstrate what that looks like in the draft town plan that some of you have in front of you. So this led to the creation of the new town plan. So I'm going to go through and highlight a few pages of the new town plan just to give you a sense of the new layout and content, because we really tried to restructure the information in the town plan and place a greater emphasis on visuals and graphics, and that was in part just to help it be more accessible, knowing that some people are visual learners and they like to look at photos and graphics sometimes rather than reading a lot of text, but also just because having the photos is just a great way to highlight the beauty and the vibrancy that makes Bennington such a special place. So this is a snapshot of the table of contents, which also illustrates that hybrid structure that I was talking about. So what we ended up doing is we developed 4 thematic parts to the town plan, and they're bookended by there's an introduction and there's a series of appendices, but 4 main parts that are organized by theme. And so part 1 is the place to be. Part 2 is Bennington for All. Part 3 is Connected Community. Part 4 is Resilient Community. And then within each of those thematic parts are topic-specific chapters. So if you can see on the screen or in your copy in front of you, for example, under Part 1, the place to be, there is 1 chapter on land use, whereas in Bennington for All, there are a couple of chapters, 1 on economic development and 1 on housing, and then a number of chapters within Connected Community and Resilient Community, all touching on different topics and also making sure that all of the statutory requirements of a municipal plan are included in there as well. And then the nice thing, if you're looking at this table of contents on the web, it's actually clickable, so you could click any one of the part headings or the chapter headings. I think you can even click in the sub-chapter headings, and it'll take you right to that page if you're on the web version. So that's just a handy navigational tool if you don't want to scroll through all of the content to get to what you're looking for. So this is just an example of the introduction, just one of the pages of the introduction. It's got one of the design features that's carried throughout the plan are these quotes. So for the introduction, this is just saying what the purpose of the quotes are, but throughout the rest of the plan, there are these quote bubbles, which are quotes from actual people, things that we heard either in survey responses or that we captured in meetings, and so those are actual direct quotes from folks. And then this is an example of the general layout of each cover page for each part. This is the place to be, so generally has a nice photo, displays the vision statement for that section, and then the high-level goals for that section. And then I'm going to briefly hand it over to Nick to give a high level about the future land use map.
Excellent. Thank you for having me. So this is the future land use map in the current plan. It has been reworked in line with the new state statutory guidelines that are framing and giving all planning commissions in the state a language through which they can all speak, and the towns have the opportunity to change that, as Bennington has, by adding a couple of different areas to break out a couple of different topics, namely transportation, institutional, and the public open space. But these future land use areas will help give some continuity to the way you can look at your town plan, and then you can look at your neighbor's town plan and say, I might have some comments on that. Look at your future land use map. We're all speaking the same language. I can understand what you're trying to have go on in your municipality. So this future land use map captures your downtown, your neighborhoods, which are surrounding the downtown, your institutional uses, your areas that don't have utilities but could see some infill and transition in those orange areas, as well as the three rural categories that are focused on rural housing and businesses, rural agriculture and forestry, and then rural conservation. So that's a brief overview of this, and I'll be here to answer questions later.
And I'll just reiterate that this future land use map is not a zoning district map. It is looking at land uses in a broad sense with future-oriented, hence the name future land use map. So for more detailed descriptions of zoning districts and zoning map, you should refer to the land use regulations for Bennington. I'll also go through just a couple more fun pictures of our layout for our town plan. Again, there's, our chapter on housing, which illustrates sort of the graphic emphasis of the new town plan, and as well as some of the pull-out quotes of things people had to say. Another nice example of the town plan and how maps typically look in the new town plan. And again, if you were to look at this on a web version, you'd also be able to, zoom in with your screen, like zoom in on different elements of the map here. I know it's, doesn't look super clear maybe when you're sitting and, looking at it from far away or just looking at it on a printout, but a lot of the features of the town plan were designed with web viewing in mind, although of course it can be viewed as a hard copy, as many of you have in front of you. And then this is a example section from the energy section, which has a lot of graphs, more so than other parts of the plan. And so just an example of what that looks like. And then we also have an example. This is a portion of the implementation matrix, which is at the end of the plan in Appendix C. And the general purpose of the implementation matrix is to consolidate all of the action items that are identified throughout the plan into a single table for easy, convenient viewing. So I mentioned before, in the way that we structure each section, there's a vision and there's high-level goal statements, and then throughout the text of the plan in each section are specific action items for addressing those goals. And so all of those action items are pulled into this table with a timeline identified, as well as responsible parties at the town and potential partners. So that's just an easy place to have all of the action items organized in one location. If you're curious and you want to see, okay, what is just a straight list of actions, here it is. And then final steps, wrapping it up here, we did some public engagement on this draft that I've just shared with you. We had these idea board, idea posters that we developed using each of the vision statement and goals for each section. You can see an example of what one of the idea boards looked like for connected community, where there's the vision statement at the top, each of the goals, or I think that's just some of the goals for that section, and then an opportunity for people to provide comments on the goals, basically saying, looking for, did we get it right? Did we take all of your feedback into consideration with these goals? And so we had these idea boards available for the past few weeks at the Bennington Free Library, at the Senior Center, and they were available at the Sunrise office for Sunrise families and staff. We also sent an email update to all of the folks who came to our community roundtables and gave us their contact information and said they wanted to get updates about this process. So if you attended one of our community roundtables back in early 2024, you might have received an email with information about the idea boards and about this meeting and other opportunities. And we also sent email updates to the partner organizations that we worked with to do the focus groups that I mentioned. And Sunrise was one of the groups we worked with initially, and they actually invited us back to come speak to their families at the center group a few weeks ago, which was really nice to bring it full circle, because they were one of the groups we started our outreach with in December of 2023, talking to parents in that group. And so it was great to go back to them again and show them what we've done. And beyond that, there will be a series of public hearings, as Dan mentioned, and that schedule will be set by the select board. So that's really what I have. I know I went through it very quickly because I wanted to make sure there was time for everybody's questions and comments. So, keep bumping that. That's what I've got. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Callie. So at this time, I would like to open it up for public comments. If you do have any comments, please remember to step up to the microphone. We do have one of our commissioners who is dialed in through Zoom, so I want to make sure he can hear you as well. And also clearly state your name for the minutes. The floor is open.
I got some questions. So,
Could you please step up to the mic?
my name is Brian Siegel. I live in the Apple Hill area. From what I just saw, all the people that you polled were just toddlers and the infirmed. So that doesn't seem to have anything to do with anything. So of this plan, how is it actually affecting, like, my area? It's like supposedly they're tearing it all up, and it's not going to be the same place that it was, and that's not being addressed. So I'm trying to find out who's actually in this room or part of this survey that's being affected by the new plans, because I have not been involved. Has anybody in my Apple Hill area been, like, surveyed or spoken to about any of this? I'll take that as a no. So that's where I'm at. I feel like nothing's really being addressed at all. Like, what is it really going to do, and how is it really going to impact us, and how is it going to kill the natural animals and the wildlife around here? Because that's what's really going on. And we're all just putzing around, it looks like. And I tell you, I've been here for 7 years. And when I first moved up here, about a year after I moved up here, I lost my wife. And I'll tell you, the animals, they brought me back. They totally brought me back. I wouldn't be here without them. So if you're proposing some silly, stupid plan just to line some already too rich guy, I say no. I say no at all costs. I think that you all should work it out in a better way, because we're all being bullied by somebody who doesn't give a you-know-what. So that's why I came this evening, and that's just really all I have to say. And I hope that, there'll be a collective rethinking. Thank you.
So Evan, can I respond?
Yeah.
So Brian, have you read the town plan? Do you have any specific comments? Because you may be confusing the town plan with the rezoning request. So this town plan has nothing to do with that rezoning request. And in fact, I can assure you that all of the protections that were in the previous town plan exist and/or have been enhanced. So I would urge you to read the town plan, and if you have specific comments, let us know. As far as protection of natural resources, there is a whole section on that, and so I can understand the confusion because they're happening at the same time, but this town plan has nothing to do with that rezoning request. So,
My mistake.
no worries. I can completely understand why you might be confused because they're happening at the same time.
Yeah.
So, okay. But just to reassure you, and I think if you did take some time to read through the town plan, you'd feel comfortable that the protections are there. So, thank you very much for your comments.
And Dan, is there a date for the next hearing on that rezoning request for the?
There is not. We would remember at the last meeting we said that we would try to schedule that probably in October. Yep. So it won't be until October at the earliest that we would be considering that request again. So thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi. Diana Laser, and there we go. I'm going to sing now. Okay. So I understand that the town plan as it exists now is a visionary plan, and then it's much different from the previous more detailed descriptions of land use. I know this is a philosophical change, and I think that although this philosophical change is all well and good, I think that it goes too far in being visionary and with much less detailed description and examination of what each category contains. To me, they're very vague. I don't really understand what each category means. I mean, to me, there's no detailed description. And I think visionary plans without adequate regulatory language or guidance leaves lots of room for people to misinterpret and to kind of plan or try to implement things in areas where they shouldn't be. And so that leaves the town open to lots of lawsuits, lots of ill-conceived projects, which just would be cantankerous at the very least. And I think if we don't make our plan specific, then, and very specific to what needs to be done, then I think perhaps this may be a roadmap of what not to do for the rest of the state.
Actually, one question on your comment. When you're referring to the categories, are you referring to the land use categories?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
I will say that's a comment that we have received loud and clear through multiple hearings, and I know, and thank you, Callie, for adding in the extra piece about the land use categories and zoning as well. That is something that we do have on our list to make sure that we tackle and clarify. But Dan, anything you want to add?
So I would ask if you think there are protections in the current town plan that are not in this town plan, please let us know, because I can assure you that we made every effort to include and enhance protections for things like scenic resources and natural resources, forest resources. So it would be helpful for us if you had specific things you said, you know what, the current town plan really protects this and articulates how that protection, but this one doesn't. And I'm not saying we didn't miss something, but I will tell you that we made every effort to ensure that the same level of protections, if not enhanced, occurred in this town plan as opposed to the previous town plan. And I do hear your point. If we haven't articulated clearly enough what each one of the land use categories mean and what they should be, we'll take a look at that. Certainly was not intentional, but if that's the case, we've got several meetings we're going to be looking at that, and I know the Regional Commission is here to hear that comment as well, so we'll take that up for sure. So, but I will say, what helps us the most, the general comments are great, and we'll go back and look, but if you're like, you know what, you guys really missed this, fix this particular thing, that's a lot more helpful for us. And I know it's a lot. It's 120 pages, so we're still going to do the work, but if you notice things, let us know. So thank you.
We can provide it.
Yeah, and I know that Laura's already provided us with some comments, and she may have some more this evening, but so we're going to take a close look at those. So thank you.
Laura Block. I think you probably have all gotten my memo, but I just have a separate question that just occurred to me. Does the new town plan, the draft of the new town plan, identify preferred solar sites as the old town plan did?
Yes, in
I
fact.
didn't see that anywhere in this, whatever it is.
So Callie may want to expand on that, but I can tell you that we worked, if you recall, there was a lot of effort that went into that particular work several years ago, and we made every effort to make sure that every bit of that work was preserved. We did not modify where the preferred sites were. We did not modify the criteria for preferred sites. Callie, maybe you can speak to that as well, but that was our goal, and we did not make any changes.
Is it in that?
It is, yes. So,
Callie, can you come up to the...
sorry. Yes, so, okay. On page 99, figure 7.18, potential solar generation, there is in the legend, there is, it does indicate preferred sites.
Oh, it shows the map.
Yes, it's on the map. Yeah.
And Laura, that has not, those preferred sites have not changed from the previous town
okay.
plan.
Yeah.
So that, remember, the energy element was adopted after a committee worked really hard to focus on criteria for renewable energy. That has all been preserved in its original state. Yep.
Okay, because I couldn't see it anywhere here.
Yep. It's a lot of pages.
Yeah. Yeah, because there's a couple of different energy resource maps in the energy chapter. There's one that's showing existing generation of all types, which is primarily solar, is what we primarily have in Bennington. And then again, on page 99 are potential resource area maps for solar and wind. And then, if I'm looking at the map correctly, the boxes that look like they have a heavy black outline, like they're bolded, are the preferred sites. Yeah.
I'd also point out that on page 101, there's a map of preferred sites, and it's titled that.
Yeah, thank you. Forgot about that separate map.
Thank you, voice from the ether.
Yes. Yeah, page 101 the preferred sites are also shown on the map I just mentioned, but yes, thank you for reminding me, Nick, that there is an additional map that we created. We made a lot of maps.
Is there a way to,
Diane,
slowly just now? You can-
To zoom in, you mean? Yeah. Yes, so again, a lot of this plan was designed for web viewing because I think realistically, anyone who's going to be going to check the town plan like a few years from now is probably going to just go Google it and, look up on the website. And yes, there should, there'll be a function where you can, zoom in, as much as you like. And it'll hopefully be a little bit clearer than it looks on the physical copy.
Us oldsters sometimes,
Yeah.
we like paper.
My turn?
Yeah. Thanks for your patience, Peter. You're up next.
Okay. I have two questions and one comment. Unfortunately, my comment because my neighbor left. I'm actually on the board of Sunrise, and the people at Sunrise who were interviewed were all adults. They're not necessarily from Apple Hill, and I didn't sit in on those, but those were families who were from the area, so they were adults. I have two questions. One, on the figure 1.1 where it talks about transient/infill, what's the criteria that puts an area in that? And then secondly, and this is much more important, is under the appendix on the implementation for solar siting on page 123, that it makes a reference to community solar projects are encouraged and may be located anywhere in Bennington not specifically identified as a prohibited exclusion area in the solar facility siting criteria. Moreover, any community solar project located on a site that is not a prohibited exclusion area shall be considered as being located on a preferred site, which makes your outline of preferred sites sort of meaningless. But more importantly, my question is about community solar projects. Is that, what does community solar project mean? Does that include commercial developments, solar developments?
Callie is very knowledgeable in that. I can tell you that community solar is small-scale solar projects. But Callie, maybe you can be more specific in that.
Well, but if they're small scale, and I know the siting criteria and the size requirements there, but small scale, does that also include commercial?
Well, a community solar project typically refers to a project where people are buying into the an entity will set up a solar project, and then you, as long as you're usually as long as you're within the same utility territory of that solar project, you could buy shares into that solar project and get the net metering credits on your bill without actually physically having the solar on your house or roof. So that's typically what community solar projects are. And they're often used as a way, for example, people who are renters or who live in multifamily, that's a way for them to get the benefits of, reduced energy bills by buying into a solar array that might be several towns over. So that's really the distinguisher there for community solar projects, is it's community owned in that people are buying into it.
But you said typically, not exclusively. So, because I'm familiar with, I think it's in North Bennington, and I know some people who have, a community a group who formed together and opened a solar site.
Yeah.
But what I'm more concerned about is, does that also include a commercial, a business site?
It does
and that
not.
needs to be made clear.
Well, it isn't the definition in the town plan.
I think
And it
so.
also has to do with the
I didn't
size.
see it. Now, there's a lot of pages, so I could have missed it.
And that, and
So, and if not, we can
make sure, but
clarify that.
I'm almost positive that language is exactly the same language that was in the old town plan, Peter. So that has not changed. Not to say we shouldn't change it, but that is exact same language, and it was limited in size and purpose because it had to be a community solar, and I know community solar is defined.
Well, that's one thing I would ask, is that if it's in there,
yeah, we need to make
later
sure
you
it's in
could
there.
show it to me. If it's not in there, then there should be that clear definition of community along the lines of what you said. And then the other less important question, but I'm still curious about, why does a property fall into the transition / infill area? What's the criteria for that?
So I'll speak to the general criteria. I wasn't here for when the Planning Commission was talking about the actual maps of this, but supposing we're using the legislative language on this, transition areas are defined by being adjacent to these planned growth areas that are called your neighborhood area. So they're adjacent to the neighborhood area. They are served by or planned for water, wastewater, or both, and they may not allow linear commercial strips, which is the kind of strip malls along a road that don't have any depth to them. So as you see, these are all squares, loosely. They're meant to be. These are areas that don't have utilities. Oftentimes, they have some potential, but they need some utilities to really be successful. But they're adjacent to your areas that are already understood to be where the community wants to grow, which is near its downtown. So the siting of these transition areas is very typical for the siting of transition areas everywhere else in the county. I have the county map up on my computer here if you want to see that. Because these areas are typically right on the edge of the downtown. But say you look at the ones up north, it's places where like Manchester needs to extend its utilities to open up a new neighborhood that is really close to its downtown. So it's very much in line with exactly what you're seeing elsewhere in the county. So that's a little bit of regional context, but those three criteria: near your growth area, or with wastewater, and no linear development. So,
Wastewater, what's it, sewers?
yes, sewer or water.
You can come up.
They need to be served by or planned for. So many of these areas already do have water and sewer, but they're not being mapped into the downtown because they're not being considered part of the central neighborhood area. They're, as you see, two pieces on the opposite side of the highway, and then one piece on the far east end. These are the orange areas. So yeah, they're on the fringe where some growth may happen, but it needs to be good growth to be successful. That's what the state's trying to use this for, to encourage some depth to the growth along these edges of towns. Not. So it's these orange areas. I don't have a cursor on that screen.
I'm going to
I
sit
think.
down while they chat with each other.
Yeah. Oh, there we go. So here we have the one centered on the Home Depot, actually, right there. One centered on the middle school, and one centered on the east end. So it's these three areas.
And just to those.
And importantly, this is not zoning. This is just a conceptual idea. But it's trying to codify that there's something more development friendly or more central or more positive about development here than some of these other areas that are in yellow, that are more rural in nature. So.
And just to clarify, all those areas have at least water or wastewater. So they already have, most of those areas shown already have infrastructure, or at least are adjacent to where there's extensions of infrastructure. And I don't know how many folks are aware that state law does require now that if you have access to water and sewer, you have to allow significant density regardless of what your zoning is. So this is just kind of a reflection of what the state law now requires. And it's density of housing. This is not a commercial area. These are housing areas.
I'll just quickly close the loop on the solar question. On page, on page 98, they're right, like the first column of text does talk about, it does define community solar as projects which allow people to buy into a project and receive credits on their electric bill. And then also starting around that page and continuing for several pages are very detailed set of community guidelines and siting standards, which are pretty much unchanged from the current plan. Those were left as is because a lot of work was put into developing those for the 2018 plan.
And Callie, just to remind, just to make sure that we ensure this, it's only for small scale solar projects, and I do know that it is, we'll have to find it, but it's defined as a certain kilowatt, so we'll just make sure that that's clear. It's
Is it by megawatts?
It's, I forget how much that is, but we can certainly,
It's 150 kilowatts.
150
The last time I knew.
again, the voice from the ether, the all-knowing voice, 150. Yes, thank you, Nick.
It's actually a
sorry.
separate category recognized by the PUC, and it's limited by them, at least in their regulation, the last time I looked, to 150 kilowatts.
Yeah, which is a fairly small facility. Yep. But Callie, if that's not clear, we'll make sure we'll make sure it is clear in the town plan. But again, all this language carried over directly from the old plan, so we'll make sure that's very clear.
Can I go next?
Yep, go ahead.
I agree with this gentleman back here, and I agree with Peter, and I agree with Laura. What I want to say that kind of, I hope, encompasses all of it is, we want Bennington to be Bennington. We want it to be unique. We want it to have open space, vistas, animal life like this gentleman talked about. And I don't think we need to just conform to whatever the state wants. It's Bennington's town plan. And what has worked for Bennington for many, many, many years will keep working for Bennington. If we overgrow it with housing with no jobs, if we take away the open land, or we take neighborhoods like Apple Hill and put some kind of a dumbass development up there for solar where it benefits one individual, that isn't what the citizens of Bennington want. And the presentation they made with the kids and the maps and that's all great, but that isn't, to me, real. You all know what everybody wants in Bennington. That's why you all live here. That's why you may have just moved here or moved here 100 years ago. We want Bennington to stay Bennington. We want a commercial zone. I want the industrial zone separate from the commercial. I don't want that to be encompassed later on down the road and say we can build housing when we don't have the jobs to support the housing. I'm not quite understanding the state's 181. Dan, you would know that, but I don't really agree with that. And the governor, from what I understand, my opinion anyway, just my opinion, he came from the building industry, and he wants to open up Vermont to building. But that isn't what people are drawn to Bennington or Vermont for. They like the open spaces, they like the country atmosphere, they like the feeling that we're visually 25, 50 years back compared to Boston or New York or wherever. And I think you all got to remember that. Yes, we need improvement. Yes, we need a vibrant downtown. Yes, we need all the things that they say in the other part. We'd like to improve that. But we can't get away from the basics of what brought me back here 30-something years ago. And I think we are moving away from it. Some of it is forced by the state. Some of it is forced by our different political agendas in this town. But I hope we don't ever lose the flavor of Bennington, because if we do, we've got nothing. So thank you.
So Mike, I will say, it's clear you have not read the town plan, because everything you just said is included in the town plan.
That's what I know it's included, but I want it to stay included.
It is included in the current
Okay,
town
and it's going
plan.
to stay that way, correct?
And it's been enhanced for the most part for all those protections you're talking about.
Okay, then if you've done that, as your first act as assistant...
I didn't do that. The Planning Commission did that, and the Regional Commission
But
did
you're
that.
going to make sure it's going to stay then, right?
Yes.
All right. Thanks, pal.
So your comments are well said, but they're already in there. So.
And I'm a day late in the dollar show.
Nancy White Bennington. I'm aware of the many, many extra meetings the Planning Commission and the BCRC held over the past 2 years, and I know you put a lot of hours into it.
Oh, can you bring the microphone up a little, Nancy?
So I do appreciate all the time and work you put into it. I have many questions. Do you need to know the page I'm on, or just, I'm on land use, page 15. The town should secure an expanded downtown center to broaden eligibility for tax and permit incentives for mixed use and housing projects. Is that town center right now into the neighborhoods?
Kelly, that just includes the downtown, correct? The downtown future land use map?
So that, but isn't there an expanded downtown already that comes into the neighborhoods?
No. We have a designated downtown that's centered around the downtown that exists today and around the Four Corners. And that particular goal is to expand it somewhat to include more area that would be eligible for all those benefits.
But will that come into the residential neighborhoods?
No, it's going to be in the built environment where there's mixed use.
So Gage Street, Energizer, that is not going to be any part of a downtown?
I think that's actually, can you look at the map there, Kelly? Is that actually included in the neighborhood or is the downtown area the expanded?
So it's in the downtown FLU area, I believe.
Yeah.
Can you guys use two different microphones? It's hard to hear what you're saying.
Okay. I'm just trying to understand, when we're talking downtown right now, where the neighborhoods are, the streets that are now considered part of the downtown?
And they're all shown on that map, so that'd be the neighborhood areas, and then the downtown areas are in that darker color. So if there's any specific areas that you feel uncomfortable about, certainly just let us know, and we'll take a look at it and make sure that we
And when you expand the center, will that come into the neighborhoods?
Designations on this one, that specifically. Like if you could flip to figure 1.2.
I don't have a screenshot of that in the presentation, unfortunately.
I'll look after. It also talks about possibly expanding the loan program. Will that just be for businesses in the downtown or relocating?
So that's going to be up to the select board to decide, make that decision.
Okay.
The town plan can't implement anything. It can only be a document that recommends.
It's just talking about businesses, but homeowners can still access that town loan program.
We do have a
correct?
we do have a homeowners program as well. Yes.
Okay. Somebody else has a question. Tell me. I'm just.
You're up, Nancy. Let's hear your question.
It's talking about the town. I've got to see. Creating a plan for the downtown. I think it's talking about how it's going to appear. Isn't that plan already in place? When I looked at the zoning bylaws last year that showed everything in the downtown, the streetscapes and the sidewalks and parking and bike paths, isn't that plan already created?
So I'm not sure which plan you're referring to in the current town plan, but we do have several plans regarding the downtown, yes.
So the streetscape improvement plan, don't we already have that made up?
We don't have a comprehensive that's a hard word to say, streetscape improvement plan, but it's recommending that we develop one.
On economic development, when I'm reading about a circular economy, would that be something our town would get involved in, or would that just be something people and groups would do on the side?
So Bruce, you're the circular
Sorry, I didn't hear the question.
The question was about circular economy. Maybe you could explain that. I know that was something you would hope to include in the plan.
Circular economy refers to businesses in town and other trying to use or reuse the products of other businesses so that waste is recycled back into the income stream for the town. It's a concept of a form of economic development that is being used in other towns to, again, eliminate solid waste problems, to increase the resilience of the local economy by reusing materials in it. That's really all it refers to, is the concept of a circular economy.
Okay. Sorry, I get stickers all over. It talks about working with other nearby towns, the broader economic region, and the state to further regional economic development opportunities. We don't have anybody in the town office right now with economic development in their job title. Are we going to add that back into Shannon's job title?
That's a select board decision. We do partner with the Bennington County Regional Commission to do that kind of work, but job titles are up to the select board.
But we're already working with all the other towns with the...
Well, we're working with the Bennington County Regional Commission primarily on regional development issues.
Poverty in here, the poverty rate I know in 2018 was 20.4. What are we at right now?
I think it's what do you know what that is, Callie? I think it's 13.1 was what Jackie mentioned before in the select board meeting when you requested that information.
I don't know. It doesn't make sense. It could have dropped 6 points with the need increasing every year in Bennington.
It's the same data
I've
source.
looked at the way the quadrants are broken up, but it also says in here, the town will work with community stakeholders that provide services for people experiencing homelessness and promote programs that assist people in obtaining permanent housing. Has anybody been talking to the other towns in Bennington County? Are they going to be stepping up with shelters and to be providing apartments for people who are homeless?
So this is the Bennington's town plan. It's not a town plan for other folks. I can't speak to what other towns are doing.
But haven't the groups been talking about bringing people from Bennington County to Bennington each year to continue to do that?
Jonah, do you understand the question? I know that Jonah does a lot of work
I
with.
thought that was something groups in the Bennington County Alliance have been talking about.
Do you have a recommendation for a change in the town plan regarding that?
Yes, I mean, we need to focus on Bennington, and the other towns need to step up to start taking care of their citizens. We've been doing it by ourselves for 25 years. Many people who've never lived in Bennington have come here homeless. We have no numbers as far as how many have apartments. For whatever reasons, people may not have been able to work. So I think we really need the other towns in Bennington County to step up, and I wish the Bennington County Alliance, I don't know what they're working on, because their meetings haven't been public for 2 years, and it's hard for Bennington residents to know what's going on. I'll see if anybody else has questions.
Thank you, Nancy.
Good evening. I'm Bill Knight, Bennington. You may have touched on this a little bit earlier, but just it seemed like in the last few days, we talked about going from rural conservation to rural residential, and before that even got an echo, we're talking about going to general. Is that going to change the standards or the criteria for preferred sites at all?
No. I can say definitively no.
Well, what is, and I guess with all this information, but what is the motivation to change from the residential and the conservation to the general?
I think Nick explained that before, that's a statutory requirement that we try to make all of our land use categories similar throughout the state. That was discussed earlier in the meeting, so that's why that change is made. I can tell you, if you read the town plan and look at the criteria that are applicable to that particular locations, they are the same or more enhanced than the previous protections.
Will there be any spot changes for this, like no changes, like, for example, where, I'm interested in obviously the solar area up in our area?
No. There's no, first of all, this is, as we've pointed out, this is not a zoning map, so this is not requiring any changes. And for those agencies that use the town plan as opposed to the bylaws for regulatory purposes, all the protections that were in the previous town plan remain in this town plan. And if there are any that we missed, we'd be happy to include them.
Yeah, it's probably okay. It's a lot to read. I've tried to read through it, and I'm just trying to pick out the parts I want to read.
It's a lot, and I understand that, and that's why we tried to break it up into sections. But it is there's a town plan is required by statute to cover, I don't know how many areas, Kelly, and we have to.
15 state goals, or 12 or 13 required elements.
So all those things have to be in that town plan, otherwise we'd probably make it a lot shorter.
So I hear again, I know you've covered this, but just that quick skip from conservation to residential was kind of something I was into, how that happened and why it happened so quickly, why it was no longer talked about.
So the rural general includes the rural conservation area in many locations, and it has the same protections.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Evan, I think Clark.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Clark.
Good evening. I apologize for my voice. Bad time of year for me. My name is Clark Adams. I'm a Bennington resident. You know, and I'm looking through the implementation annexes here, and I see the prioritization of different things. And a couple of things really jumped out to me, and I am hard-pressed to understand why here on page 114, under Bennington for All, looks like the item here says, town will promote Bennington as a regional economic hub, listed as a low priority. That's, in my mind, I'm not the expert, that seems counterintuitive to advancing this town's economic health. And when you move the next, well, two more blocks down from that, as Bennington will work cooperatively with nearby towns, the broader economic region in the state of Vermont to further regionalize economic development opportunities. Again, a low priority. I don't know about the rest of you guys, but if this town's broke, people in this town are broke, doesn't matter how many fancy plans you put together. We need, you know, the rising tide lifts all boats. And I truly believe the number one priority for Bennington should be good opportunities for the people in this town to prosper. And I don't understand how these could list as low priority items.
So Clark, we've already changed that, so we agree 100%.
Yeah.
You'll see in the new, when the revised plan comes out based on this input, the Planning Commission already agreed that those priorities were not helpful and didn't reflect, you know, perhaps in all instances what the overall town's priorities were. So we've modified the implementation matrix to deal with those particular issues. So once again, agreed.
Yeah. And I think Callie's presentation, when you showed the implementation matrix, I think it showed it the updated version without the priorities and everything, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's obviously not changed on the hearing draft because this is the hearing draft, but where did my thing go?
But Callie, we'll just have to remember, I think, just to Clark's point, if there's not a clear reflection in the text of that high priority, we'll have to make sure that we do that just to reflect that. Okay, but thank you, Clark. Agreed. I always like when people come up with comments that we already agree on, so that's great. More of those we'll take.
Anybody else? Yep, go ahead, Nancy.
In the section on mobility, and it's talking about the policy the select board adopted, a method to allocate resources for traffic calming projects. The police department gave us a list of about 9 roads, and people who've lived here long enough know that those are roads we've had problems with for decades. Does that mean that those roads will probably get put off to the side?
No, actually, the select board gets to decide on whether what roads get traffic calming measures. So that does not. It's not meant to discount any existing priorities.
Well, I was just afraid the policy might get used to make other roads priorities before the ones that probably really need to have it addressed first.
Again, the select board gets to determine that. Not the town plan is not that specific. That's a select board responsibility.
It says the town should follow the latest version of the Vermont Transportation Equity Framework. What is an equity plan that we should be following?
Is Callie here? Callie, can you talk about that? Great. You take the other microphone, yeah.
Yes, so the Vermont Agency of Transportation put together this transportation equity framework. I think in the web version it's hyperlinked, or it will be if it's not currently, and it should take you there. But it's basically, I'm not intimate, I haven't read all of it in detail, but it's basically a tool that Vermont Agency of Transportation developed to help decision makers think through various transportation decisions and how they, impact different users of the transportation system, like drivers, walkers, bikers, bicyclists, I should say, that sort of thing. So that's basically, in a nutshell, what the transportation equity framework is.
Is it mandatory to use that?
No, it's not mandatory. Okay. It's just, throughout the plan are sprinkled, different state resources and information that could be a helpful guide to the town in its decision-making processes, but there isn't a mandate to use that tool or, most of the other resources that are mentioned in the plan are not mandates that the town has to use. It's just could be helpful to the town in their decision-making processes.
In the section also under mobility where it's talking about parking, it's especially in the downtown, I think our town is really going in the wrong direction. It's talking about sharing, are we talking about using our town public lots with private developers and their tenants and their people working in offices?
So I'm not sure, you're going to have to refer us to a section that you're concerned about, Nancy.
I'm on page 53. Innovative approaches to parking should also be used when appropriate, including payment in lieu of parking by developers, shared parking, and other strategies.
And what's your concern about that?
Well, the lots that the town owns that the taxpayers pay to maintain, so people have a place to park if they want to shop and eat. If we're going to let private property owners have their tenants and people in offices fill those lots up, what are the people going to do that want to shop and support the downtown?
So that's not what that is referring to. What that's referring to is an alternative way of creating adequate parking, which is a payment from the private property owner to create additional public parking.
Okay.
So
But
that's what that policy is.
It's not suggesting the town take over any private parking lots in the downtown.
That's not what that refers to. If that option were to come up, that would be a select board decision.
Okay. I've talked to 2 business owners in the downtown who've had customers tell them that they would come and shop more often if there was convenient parking. And one business owner told me that a year ago. Are we ever going to address that? We took the parking meters out about 30 years ago. There was supposed to be a plan in place to check up on cars, and nobody's ever followed up on it.
Well, the we who would address that is the select board. So as a member of the select board, you could certainly bring that up as an idea. I will say that study after study after study that we've done shows that there's more than adequate parking in our downtown.
And what are the people doing with their cars that don't have enough parking at the Putnam block?
Nancy, as you know, I actually work adjacent to that parking lot, and I have never seen it full.
Oh, because I had somebody tell me who worked in one of the offices, they only had a certain number of spaces, so I'm just wondering what's going to happen down the road if the 4-story building goes up at Tuttle's.
Well, I can tell you that they intend to build a significant amount of parking infrastructure if that project moves forward.
But somebody could put up a 4-story building and they don't have to provide any parking on their lot, correct?
That's correct. Yeah. I doubt very much that anybody would, because then they wouldn't be able to get any tenants, but. And that, again, is in the regulations, Nancy. That's not a town plan issue.
Well, that's in the town plan, though, so that would be zoning.
The zoning already includes that particular criteria, yes.
When I'm reading here, is there really a possibility that passenger trains might come back to North Bennington?
Is there a, Nick, you have an answer to that? That's a good question.
As a local rail nerd, yes. It is true that there is a corridor study from Amtrak that said there are a whole lot of corridor studies from Amtrak right now. It was a big wave of studies to get a really good gauge on where the passenger demand and the infrastructure is in this country. It is unlikely. I will say that as a person who's looked at this really extensively. It is because the track speeds between here and Rutland are really slow. And the state of the track in New York State that it would run on is still kind of eh. So So it's something that we need to plan for, we need to be prepared for in case there is an opportunity to bring passenger trains to this county. That is something that, though, that we need to take with the level of certainty that we have, that is, there's a lot of projects competing for this money, and whether it will come or not is only a question that the feds will be able to answer after all the studies are done, and even then, who knows? So that's the status of it, but it is something that we at the Regional Commission are following really closely. And I had a meeting with VTrans about this, I think it was June, but that's about where VTrans is as well. So that's the update. Talk to me after if you want to talk about that more.
If it ever did come to North Bennington, wouldn't we want to continue to bring it to Bennington, the passenger train?
I will say that Amtrak is unlikely to study that in any way because of the time loss of getting a train from North Bennington into Bennington and then back onto the track and then reversing and then heading back to Rutland. That's not going to be time competitive with driving to Montreal. It's not going to be time competitive with driving to New York City. Unfortunately, that is something that we do understand, but Amtrak's not funding anything like that right now because they really want to prioritize those high efficiency projects that don't require turning around. So.
Okay, in public services on page 57, I guess it's talking about the town working with other groups and organizations. And it's talking about when we do the capital plan annually, planning the guiding and financing of such improvements, we're not going to be adding additional nonprofits into the budget without voters being able to vote on each item, would we?
Again, select board decision, not something the Planning Commission controls.
Okay, so if it's in here and we say no, that we don't have to follow it.
It's your decision on whether or not to include more nonprofit funding for more nonprofits without them petitioning. If they have to petition, it's up to the voters.
Under public service, it says the town should work with the supervisory union to plan for shifting uses of school properties. Would this be all public discussions?
It should be, yes, that's how I would assume that would be.
Yeah,
but again, Nancy, that's a detail that, that we don't have in the plan.
I just want to make sure that it would be public so everybody would know. Oh, wait, somebody else might have questions.
Okay. Go ahead.
Diana again. I don't know if this is the appropriate place for this comment, but as someone who lives with someone who is disabled during the winter, it's great that you have those jut-out things so people can, go in their wheelchair or on their crutches onto the sidewalk. However, the way the sidewalk plows are, they plow the middle, but the part right up next to the car, where the car parks, can have, that much snow. And so a person in the passenger side can't get out. So, you just can't get out. So take it for what it's worth.
We appreciate that comment, and it is an issue for mobility, for folks, limited mobility. The town of Bennington is one of the few towns that not only plows regularly, but also clears snow off of sidewalks where it does build up. It's an exceedingly high cost service, but it's one that we'll continue to do, but I'll just be frank, I don't think it's something we can do every time it snows. It's more when it builds up, then we remove it. So it really comes down to a cost issue. I'm shocked in Montpelier, they don't even plow the sidewalk. So unfortunately, it comes down to a cost issue. But we do remove snowbanks regularly when there's high snow amounts.
Page 75 in public service. It says the town should actively recruit citizens, including those relatively new to the area, to serve on the town's appointed boards and commissions. Wouldn't that be kind of a big conflict of interest, or people would say the town was stacking the deck?
It just says including, it doesn't say only.
We do have to promote those openings when they're available so the public knows. I think that's what that's referring to. If I'm wrong, let me know.
But I wouldn't think town officials would be going around trying to actively recruit people. Citizens are told all the time, go to the town website, read the information, so.
It doesn't say, it says the town, so basically that would be, in my opinion, be Jonah making sure that there's information out there and we're actively seeking people to serve on our, and I don't see how that could possibly be considered a negative.
Okay, so we're not going to have a town official going around and talking to people?
Doesn't say the select board, so, but there's nothing that would keep you, Nancy, from recruiting specific individuals to apply. There's nothing wrong with that.
It also says the town should work to eliminate barriers and assure accommodations for all members of the community while structuring meeting schedules and formats to meet a truly representative town government. Now, I've been reading for a couple of years. There are people who feel that free transportation, free food, and childcare should be provided at meetings for anyone who wants to go. Is this suggesting that?
I think it's suggesting that the select board make decisions about what's appropriate to encourage folks to attend and participate in meetings, whether that means getting a better audio-visual system so people can participate more carefully or more meaningfully in a remote way, whether it means making sure that our accessibility for mobility challenged folks is appropriate. It's really it's just a recommendation to the select board that they think about those things and make meetings as accessible to as many people as possible given the means of this community.
In the energy section, there's a lot of grant money available for developers for building buildings or renovating buildings. I believe landlords can also get money if they have an old building, grant money to renovate their apartments. Does anyone know if there's grant money for homeowners? Many people bought old houses. They can't afford solar. They can't afford heat pumps. They can't afford to insulate.
Callie, can you speak to that? I do know that there's some new and maybe Nick, some new programs that are targeted towards homeowners or smaller scale developers. If you don't know off the top of your head, we can certainly get back to
Are you talking
Nancy.
about grants for homeowners specifically for energy efficiency improvements? Is that what you're asking, or just like general?
Energy efficiency, everything tied to it, whether it's insulating their home, solar, or heat pumps. Can homeowners get the grant money rather than having to take out loans?
Well, it depends. I mean, I don't know if you're referring to a specific grant program and if you're asking if it's eligible for homeowners. There is a current program, the Municipal Energy Resilience Program, which has provided grants to some municipalities in the state to make energy efficiency upgrades to their municipal buildings. Bennington did not receive a grant under that program, but that is specifically for municipal buildings. I don't know of any specific grants for homeowners, but there are a number of rebates and incentives that homeowners can take advantage of specifically for energy efficiency upgrades. Like if you want to put in a heat pump in your home, for example, or insulate, better weatherize your home. Depending on your income level, there are services through BROC, the Community Action Agency. If you're a lower income person, you could get additional services at a lower cost for weatherization and heat pumps and other technologies like that. If you're not within that lower income qualifying, there's a lot of opportunities through Efficiency Vermont and through, just like there are private weatherization firms that you can contract and come and then get incentives from Efficiency Vermont. It's a sort of complex ecosystem of incentives and services, which could certainly be clearer. There are a lot of different state programs for these kinds of things, and not all of them are, easy to understand. And so a number of the recommendations in the energy section are about the energy committee, the municipal energy committee for the town of Bennington playing that educational role of helping homeowners understand the different programs that are available for them to do a variety of energy efficiency programs. And there is a good page on the town website with resources and information. I know that's something that the Energy Committee is focused on as well. So, yes, thank you. I missed them. Yeah, weatherization support programs and whatnot. So, but there isn't, as far as I am aware, a current specific grant for homeowners.
And I'll speak to that bit of outside of energy, what is there? And there is one tranche of money that periodically does get allocated by the legislature to do certain specific types of renovation, but that money doesn't go very far because it would cost an enormous amount of money at the state level. But they do periodically fund tranches of work in that world. There are also certain subsidy programs that work with, say, people who have failing septic systems out in the rural areas that get funded periodically as well. So there are a couple of programs out there, but the state certainly does not have the resources to fund a generalized home renovation program, unfortunately. And the legislature could choose to fund these kind of things. They've shown some appetite for it, but in a state that's so cost burdened, it has so much work to be done, the legislature really struggles to find the resources to subsidize this kind of work at any level of scale.
Can I just say that for energy improvements that are eligible for rebates from Efficiency Vermont, there's at least East Rise Credit Union has 0% loans that go for many, like 15 years for low and moderate income, and then low interest loans for higher income folks. So there is quite a bit of support out there, and I'm sure other banks and credit unions also do that.
Thanks, Jeannie. That's good information. I didn't know that. Thank you.
I believe several years ago, different nonprofits got a grant, and they were going to come up with a plan to solve food inequalities in Bennington County. Is the group in charge of that the Bennington County Food Security Network?
I'm not informed on that program.
Well, that $2.2 million.
So is there a question regarding the town plan?
Well, yeah, because I'm reading bits and pieces about food programs and doing this and that. I think it's important for the public to hear what is the actual plan. How is that plan going to get funded? Because we got quite a bit of money came to Bennington that's being used in Bennington County.
Like I said, I'm not informed about that. We can certainly look into that if that's something that, Callie, are you aware of that plan? And is there something that we could reference in the
community market? The garden they're starting at the Vets Home, I think the farm at Bennington College, I don't remember the fourth place.
Okay. Like I said, I'm not familiar with that. I know that Callie may have some familiarity with that. I don't know if there's a specific plan that came out of that grant, but we can look into that.
I thought Shannon was working with the different groups, that's why.
We could look into that and refer to it if it's appropriate for the town plan.
Okay.
Laura, go ahead.
I'd just like to get back to what your planning commission is supposed to be doing instead of select board work, but it's taken a long time. I just want to thank you for going over the town plan, and I hope adopting some of the recommendations that I've sent to you. And I just want to thank you for all the hard work that you've been doing. I'm sure it's a mind-bending thing to go through all of these. I mean, that plan is huge. So thank you. Thank you all.
These guys deserve all the credit, and Laura, I appreciate you saying that, and I also want to say I appreciate you guys attending the meetings and giving us meaningful input. It's very helpful.
Anybody else? Oh, go ahead.
The 500 apartments Bennington is supposed to need in the next 5 years. And I heard last week about 200 apartments possibly at Energizer. Does anybody know if there is a 200 apartment building in the state? I'd be interested to go and see what the neighborhood is like around it.
So Nancy, that's not information we have, but you could certainly look that up, and if there's a project, you could go take a look at it.
I don't believe anybody was contacted in the neighborhood when they were doing the studies. I think to put 200 apartments in there would have a huge impact on the neighborhood. I don't think many people understand the infill that they're talking about, or form-based design. I don't think it fits in the downtown or the residential neighborhoods, and you know, you put that many people in one area, I think you're going to have an issue with crime. So I'm worried as everybody's rushing, well, we need these 500 apartments. I wonder if people have thought it through. Because the people who will be most impacted are the people who own the homes in the neighborhood, so.
So Nancy, just to be clear, those are required, it's required that those targets be developed and included in the town plan. And frankly, it's not all about apartments, it's about a vast variety of different kind of dwelling units, so it's not just apartments. And it's a need that's documented and the state has documented.
I realize that, and I'm reading and hearing a lot about housing, but I'm not hearing about any private sector jobs with good pay and benefits coming to Bennington, so people are going to be able to support
So if you have recommendations about what we should include in the town plan regarding that issue, we'd be happy to consider those. And obviously, as a select board member, you have every right to propose additional language in the town plan.
It would be nice if the BCIC could restart to do what they did for decades.
Any more comments?
Okay, well, again, thank you, everybody. I see a lot of familiar faces. We really appreciate your continued interest and effort with regard to the town plan and other planning issues. It is appreciated. The next step is going to be for this group of folks to take in all the comments that we've heard over the last several weeks. Folks have submitted, we do have some significant written comments, both from Laura and from other folks that we will be reviewing. So the Planning Commission, we're going to talk before we leave about when our next meeting might be. But the Planning Commission will get together in a work session for their next meeting. The public is certainly welcome to attend, but the Planning Commission will work through the comments, and then the public will have the opportunity, if they survive the meeting, my goodness, to comment at the end of the meeting. But we're going to have a concentrated, probably two and a half hour period of time where the Planning Commission will go through comments. There'll probably be at least 2 meetings like that before the Commission decides on their final draft that they would then submit to the Select Board. But it's not too late to get comments in for the Planning Commission, and obviously you're going to have a whole other process with the Select Board. So if your comments didn't make it into this draft before it goes to the Select Board, make sure you bring those to the Select Board as well. So I think we'll make every effort to address all the comments and get something that the Select Board can adopt. So that's our process going forward. Goal, fingers crossed, that we get it to the Select Board by the end of September, and then the Select Board will start its hearing process. So thank you guys once again. Really appreciate all the input and the effort.
Thank you.
Schedules?
Yeah, let's look at schedules. So just so you guys can consider, I did tentatively reserve this room on next Thursday, which is the 4th. We have a regular meeting on the 11th. Hold on. Oh, Folks, can we just ask you to take it outside, because we got to finish scheduling our next meetings. But I really appreciate it. Thank you for all your comments, but we do have to schedule our next meetings. So I've tentatively reserved this room for September 4th, September 11th, and then September 15th, which is a Monday. I don't expect you guys to be able to do that, but that was the only date available in that week, so I said I'll take it just in case. So maybe we'll keep that as a possibility. I would suggest, if you folks are up for it, I know I've been burning you out with meetings, but if we could meet next week on the 4th and start to go through the comments and start to decide what changes we want to make. I would like to set a tentative date for us to get everything. Of course, we could feed the Regional Commission as we go, but I'd love to wrap up our work by mid-September, so the Regional Commission could include all the changes that we propose, and then by the end of, by perhaps the 4th week in September, 3rd week in September, we could a vote to submit the plan as amended to the Select Board. So that's my vision for trying to get done with this project and get it to the Select Board. But I would look to you folks to give me direction about at least the next meeting so that I can schedule that, and then we can go.
I was hoping that we could have one next week sooner rather than later. I'm okay with the 4th. You guys okay with the 4th?
Is Nick okay with the 4th? Is Nick's? Okay.
Sounds good.
All right. Will you, okay, great. So Nick thinks he can make it. Looks like the 4 of you folks can make it, so we will have a significant amount. Bridget thought she could make it next time as well, so we may have a full board.
And I won't be able to make the 11th.
Yep.
But I'm coming back to town on the 15th, so
Okay.
if we end up doing one on the 15th, I'll unpack later.
Okay. And Curran, you had a?
I was just going to say, for what it's worth, I'm available all these dates.
Oh, awesome. Okay. Yeah, very available. Okay, great. I do think most of the comments we can address fairly quickly and effectively. I've already asked the Regional Commission to start thinking about how we might address some of those comments, and they're prepared.
Zoning and land use?
Yeah, the future land use maps. Some of the comments that Laura submitted, I think we can try to address those, and we can go through that. So, Callie, I'm going to ask you this, because, and I hate to do it, but if you could check with Sam, Nick, or yourself, and see if one of you might be available to come to the meeting on the 4th, because I think now that we're getting down to the nitty-gritty of it would be more effective for you folks to be here. And we typically meet at 6 o'clock.
And it'll be here?
And we'll meet here on the 4th, yeah. I tentatively reserved this room, and I'll confirm that tomorrow. But I just think as we're getting near the end, the direct communication, as opposed to me writing it down and then meeting with you, so.
I'm out next week, but I imagine between
Sam and Nick. Yep.
one of them at least, hopefully Sam can be there.
Okay.
But I'll have to check with her
For committee.
Definitively.
Sure. And I would ask you to just take a look closely at the comments from Laura, and then also the ones, and I don't think you guys have seen them yet, I will send them to you, also Jim Sullivan's comments, which were very, very thoughtful and comprehensive, but I don't think would require significant changes, but just little tweaks here and there. Thank you for that, appreciate it. So I think that's all we need to do tonight is set our next meeting. I feel good about the participation we've had. I think the comments were, for the most part, really helpful and thoughtful and in good faith, which is nice to see. So especially the document that's so dense. There's a lot of stuff in there. So, but I think we had some great comments. So that's all I have. And so if there's not any other business, I'll ask Evan.
Is there any other business?
I'd like to make a comment about the next meeting.
Sure.
Which is that, we may have further comments ourselves, that we shouldn't be just considering
Yes.
public comment.
Oh, absolutely. Goes without saying, Nick. I'm sorry I didn't articulate that, but obviously if the commission members have comments, we'll make sure to address those as well.
All right, any other business?
I guess I'll make one comment. Sorry. Nick, if you're still there, and to anybody else, if you do have significant or, a number of comments, it would be helpful to get those ahead of the meeting. Not required, obviously, you guys are the bosses, but I know that having the written comments does help everybody kind of focus as we go through, so.
There is a comment form.
I have a number of formatting comments and stuff. I don't think those would be helpful to have in a meeting.
No, I think if they're just formatting comments, you could probably just forward them on to Callie and Sam, or Sam, and if they have questions, they can discuss them directly with you.
Yeah, I have some white space reduction type comments. It's really just a list of pages, to be honest, but I know with potential changes that we're looking at, it may resolve itself. So, yeah.
I just worry, the only thing I worry about is that, Evan makes one kind of comment, I make another, and they're in conflict, and then maybe those need to be resolved.
Yep. I would agree, and maybe if you have formatting comments, you send them to Callie or Sam, and if there are conflicts, then they can let us know, and then you guys can battle it out.
Because personally, I like white space.
I think we intentionally left some white space to let the design breathe a little bit. That was the feedback we heard. So there's been a little competing difference for the aesthetics of the pages.
Yep. And obviously not for you to resolve.
Totally agree, Callie.
All right. You will notice in the comments from Jim Sullivan, he revives the age-old argument regarding historic and historical, as well as big T, little t. I have informed him that those decisions have been made, and we're not talking about it anymore. He has accepted that. He has accepted that. He has accepted that comment. I said he could come down and fight it out with you, Nick, but we're not going to get involved. All right, that's all I have. Sorry.
All right, anything else, guys?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All right, so moved. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. See you on the 4th.
Yes, and Nancy Lively, thank you for being here to take minutes. Jonah, thank you for doing the tech stuff tonight, so really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Joe. It really helps.